last word on sports. First American Bank's 4th down on 4.
Welcome into the show. Well, the expansion has begun. The Saints bandwagon, while locally was always near capacity, has taken on a national appeal, and now Houdats are having to share their adoration of the Saints with a much broader audience. New Orleans' 48-22 win in Philadelphia, unexpected on so many levels, not necessarily the final result, but most of the things in between. Jim Henderson with a recap from Philly.
They fake a toss to Bush. Shoot for the end zone, and wide open is Colston.
In this city of Rocky, the Saints and the Eagles traded roundhouse rights to open the battle. Each team scoring on their opening possessions. The Saints on the first of two breeze to Colston connections. The Eagles on the first and only big play from Cobb to Deshaun Jackson. After that, the two traded field goal jabs until the Saints hit the Eagles with a left, a right, and a left. 3 touchdowns before and shortly after the half that allowed the Saints to open up an insurmountable 18-point lead.
To get the touchdown going into half, otherwise it's 10-10, but we get another shot at the 2-minute drill. We're able to score 17-10 at half, and then come out and get the ball right away on the turnover, special teams, get the touchdown a couple plays later, and then yet another turnover, convert those to points. I mean, that changes the outlook of the game very quickly. What has gone from a tie game all of a sudden is a 3-possession game in a matter of really 5 minutes maybe.
The one that stunned the Eagles the most was the turnover on the second half kickoff that Heath Evans put in the end zone 3 plays afterward.
Drew kind of put it out in front of me and had a couple guys converge and stop, put my shoulder down, bounced off, and was able to kind of tiptoe that line.
Looked like a Michael Vick stretching the football inside the pot.
Thank you, you're now my hero.
No one could have expected the Saints to put up 48 points on these guys. Not here, not now. But the Saints turned 3 turnovers into 3 touchdowns. And thanks to Darren Sharper, the defense didn't need the offense's help for the last one.
We switched the coverage up. I kind of was in a place I wasn't supposed to be in. They got on me about that, and they said the quarterback almost got me, so I had to make sure he didn't catch me. I'm glad I was able to get in the end zone and kind of seal the deal at the end.
And now Sean Payton has a delightful problem, keeping the high-flying Saints and the stratospheric expectations of their fans in check.
We're 2 weeks into it. We're 2-0, and we still have room to improve. We still have a lot of things we got to improve on, you like starting off with 2 wins, but it really doesn't promise you anything. I think we've got work to do in a lot of areas. When we put this tape on, and we'll see the things that we've got to correct, and then we move on against a good Buffalo team on the road again coming out east next week. So that's where we're at, and it's early in the year.
In Philadelphia with the Saints, Jim Henderson, 4th down on 4.
Drew Brees missing on just 9 attempts today. For the season, he's 51 of 68, 9 scores, and just 2 picks. Mike Bell, another solid day, 86 yards and a score on 17 carries before leaving the game with an injury. More on that in just a bit. Scott Shanley continues to shine, another interception to go with 11 tackles. To talk more about the Saints' big win over the Eagles, we welcome in Juan Kincaid. You know him, and he covers the Saints for CBS Sports, Larry Holder. This was a matchup of the top-ranked offense versus the top-ranked defense. I don't think you expected 48 points from the Saints on this. And then you look at no Donovan McNabb, could have obviously changed things up, but I don't think anyone expected what happened today, and I'm talking here and nationally to happen.
I think if McNabb's on the field, you're thinking 48 points combined. Maybe that's the total points scored by both teams, and this team maybe wins by a field goal, either the Eagles, which probably would have been favored if McNabb is playing. You take him out of the offense, it's a totally basic offense with a rookie, basically a rookie quarterback, a guy that hasn't started a game in the NFL. That's a huge difference between him and a Pro Bowl quarterback in McNabb.
And to be honest, going against a defense like the Eagles, you saw what they did last week against Carolina, creating turnovers left and right, and the Saints just shredded them. It's almost stunning to see that actually happen against an Eagles defense, which it's a team that's touted for their defense.
And you saw the adjustments. That first drive, Drew Brees 5 for 5. They go down the field basically untouched. The Eagles make a little bit of an adjustment, and you're thinking, all right, this is kind of what we expected. But then the next counterpunch from the Saints, and they never stopped counterpunching, and they took advantage of all those mistakes that the defense created.
I think Sean Payton has made it a point this year to, 1, take what the defense is giving him, and 2, spread the ball around. Don't just be run on first, run on second, throw on third. He's kind of being more creative this year with his offensive play calling because they have so many weapons in this football team. And you saw Jeremy Shockey in that first drive would catch 3 balls. You didn't hear much from him the rest of the game. well, other guys, you know, like Devery Henderson and Robert Meacham, those guys are stepping up. That's what it's going to take for this team to win a lot of football games this year. Not just settling on the main core guys to catch balls and make first downs, but other guys have to step up.
And you know what else, too? He's never been able, except for maybe 06, as a play caller, speaking of Sean Payton now, he's never been able to have that running game to rely on. I mean, he's always had to throw the ball and maybe tried to sneak in a run here. He could have called any play that he wanted at any given time today, and it seems like it would have worked.
Right, and especially you bring up running the football. I mean, Mike Bell, again, solid performance, and he's doing what you ask him to do. You run the ball, hit the hole, get the tough yards, and things work out. And I think Sean Payton is finally realizing that's the way it works, and it sets up the passing game. It leaves the field, middle of the field open. That's why Marcus Colston can catch touchdowns in the middle of the field, and it just creates for every other aspect of the offense.
It's still about keeping the defense honest and you know, keeping them off balance, and no better way to do that than with the run. And Mike Bell has been fantastic in these first two games. I mean, he's getting some help from Reggie Bush. Pierre Thomas will eventually be back to full speed. I mean, that's an area they need to start taking advantage of more. There was one time I did see where it was a 3rd and 2 and the team threw the ball, and I would like to see them, you know, lower your heads, try to get that first down running. If you don't, you should try.
You're nitpicking here. Scary moment, though, as we're talking about Mike Bell, and it was in the 4th quarter as he carried the ball, went down, started grappling with his knee, and it's always a scary moment because here's a guy that's been so important, 89 yards today, 146 or 43, whatever it was last week, and he was a little bit scared as he didn't know exactly what happened. After the game, though, he thought it could have been worse than what it initially was ruled.
I was initially worried. You know, I never had a knee injury in my life, you know, but I've been hitting my knee before, and it's hurt worse than this, and I've came back, but I'm not a doctor. As far as I know, it's fine, but I'll get an MRI tomorrow morning, and we'll see from there.
You know, remember in the past how almost devastating something like this would have been. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that, you know, Mike Bell is hurt already, but if he is, I don't think it's that big of a blow as if it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago when your leading rusher goes down.
It's not a big deal because, well, it's a big deal because he's playing so well.
Right.
But secondly, it's not that big of a deal because you got Pierre Thomas waiting in the wings, who hasn't really played any football yet, who has fresh legs. Reggie, you hope he starts to play better. And again, they've liked what they've seen in training camp with P.J. Hill. I mean, this is a kid that's young, out of Wisconsin, can hit the hole, can run the ball. They're strong in that area.
And Lionel Hamilton, too.
Yeah, you bring Lionel Hamilton. I mean, he proved it after struggling in that first preseason game. He proved he can be relied upon. So it's the first time, really, you can really say this team is deep at running back and guys who can perform. And you say the weakest link, as scary as this is Reggie Bush. I mean, he's the weakest link running the football. But if you have other guys, 2, 3 other guys ahead of him, you're in really good shape.
And then, you know, you also talk about this depth. You look at the way Jamon Bushrod is playing. Jamal Brown goes down, you're thinking, wow. You know, they're running their 3rd-string offensive tackle out there, and he's able to protect Drew Brees, who, by the way, I think took his 2 biggest hits as a Saint. As you start talking about scary moments, that was probably the 2 scariest moments.
Absolutely. I mean, when he gets hit from the blind side, and he basically backed into that sack. I'm surprised he didn't fumble the ball, but you're holding your breath. If there's one play this team can't afford to lose, it's Drew Brees.
He's never made a play like that. That was a play that he backed into. I mean, that was probably maybe his only mistake of the day outside of the pick.
Well, and it's a tougher defense. I mean, the Eagles have one of the best defensive units in the league, and they're going to attack Jamon Bushrod because he's an inexperienced guy. He's replacing a Pro Bowl guy in Jamal Brown, and they're going to attack him. And they were successful a couple times, but not too often after that.
All in all, he held his own, and so did the Saints. Larry Holder, Juan Kincaid, will be talking a lot more about the Saints as we look at their defense and maybe the one weak link on this team through 2 games, the special teams. Stay with us. You're watching 4th Down. Also ahead, 2 impressive wins by the Saints have fans screaming black and gold Super Bowl, but the players are trying to keep it all in perspective. We visit with linebacker Jonathan Vilma, and we revisit our Saints roundtable. Plus, later in the show, LSU's win in the 2006 season, the Saints are 2-0, and the manner in which the team obliterated their first 2 opponents makes it so easy to start talking big picture so early in the season. The Saints' prolific offense is fun to watch, their opportunistic defense a point of national interest now. But Sean Payton has built a locker room full of guys who relentlessly pursue greatness, but at the same time cautiously approach acclaim.
The challenge was simple. You know, Sean broke us down, and I called this offense up and said, hey, I've been on great offenses, and namely in Seattle, where I think talent-wise, maybe some of the best I've ever been on, but I think pride and arrogance hurt that team and lost us games and lost us championships. And my challenge was, hey, let's be humble.
The thing that Coach Payton said, which is a good point, the only thing that us being 2-0 promises us is that we can go 2-14, which is a good point because we haven't done anything yet. It's good to get these victories and to be 2-0 in the NFC. We have a lot of football left to play.
Eagles quarterback Kevin Kolb threw the football 51 times against the Saints this afternoon, amassing 391 yards through the air. Those numbers a bit misleading. The Saints defense, for the most part, held a wounded Eagle offense in check. Jim Henderson caught up with Saints middle linebacker Jonathan Vilma after the game.
Well, this is going to get a few people's attention around the league, don't you think, when you put up 48 against these guys?
Well, it was a good win. I think people will start to take notice. You know, for us, we still got to work on the improvements. There are a lot of good things that we did. Obviously, we did well enough to win the game, but there's also things that we have to improve on. We can't get too high on the highs right now. And when we go back to work on Monday, we'll watch the film tomorrow and then get ready for the next opponent.
When Deshaun Jackson hit you with that 71-yarder early, what's the thinking on the team defensively?
You know, on to the next one. They're going to make plays. They have playmakers, and, you know, they're NFC champions, you know, go to championship, things like that. A winning team for a reason, and they have the playmakers. They have the ability. Aside from not having Donovan, they still had a plethora of guys out there that can make plays. So for us, we just said, you know what, let's move on to the next one and get going.
The Wildcat formation in the first half, how much were you surprised by it, and how much of an adjustment did that require?
We expected them to use it. We didn't know they would use it so extensively. I mean, they had everything off of it. They had the zone read, a toss, a reverse pass. So you usually don't see that many plays out of the Wildcat. You usually see 1 or 2 plays. So, you know, you could tell they worked on it in practice and maybe even in training camp. And they really used it they had some good mileage out of it in the first half.
And they'll probably use it a lot more next week when Michael Vick is ready to play for them, right?
Glad we're not playing next week.
Talk about what Darren Sharper means to this team based on what he's done in the first 2 games.
We know exactly what we were getting with Darren Sharper. He made those plays time in and time out for Minnesota, and we're happy to have him.
It's a Street Patrol Spectacular. 4 explosive episodes, 2 hours of alarming surprises on one arresting night. The Street Patrol Marathon. Viewer discretion advised.
Tuesday at 7 on My 54.
Now you can watch AFV 5 times a week. Join Tom Bergeron for all the fun and surprises on America's Funniest Home Videos.
Weekdays at 5 on My 54.
In today's society, many corporations and government offices utilize the work of paralegals to help with their legal and regulatory responsibilities. They may also work side by side with attorneys to perform a variety of tasks. The new associate degree program in paralegal studies.
Jonathan Vilma leading another defensive surge that, you know, everyone's going to be holding their breath. And especially after that first drive that the Eagles put together with the big play, here we go again. But you know what? They stood fast, they adjusted, they didn't give up another big play, and they went. Now, granted, we talked about this. It wasn't Donovan McNabb, it was Kevin Kolb. For 2 straight weeks, they've gone up against a quarterback that's making their first NFL start, and that says a lot. But still, how many times have we said, Larry, that you don't have to be great, you just have to be average with this offense, and this defense is doing more than that.
Right, and it's almost bend, don't break, and they're creating turnovers. It's the first time you can say that, really, since Sean Payton has been here, and obviously Greg Williams is a big key. Again, 3 interceptions, a fumble recovery on special teams, which I know we're going to get to in a little bit, but I mean, when you're making turnovers, it makes life so much easier, and you can win big against really good teams.
7 takeaways in 2 games, and most of those takeaways giving you a short field offensively. Look, you can't ask for a better performance by this defense. Yeah, they've given up some yards on defense, but most of those yards have come when they're up by 20 points, and they're dropping back and trying to prevent balls getting over their head. I have no complaints with this defense right now because you look at them from training camp to now, and everything that Greg Williams preached, attitude, strip the ball, it's all coming to fruition.
The 2 plays that kind of stuck out in my head, obviously the big one to Deshaun Jackson, where it appeared, we won't know a little bit more until those guys look at the tape, but you saw Greg Williams talking with Roman Harper afterward. It looked like Roman Harper, in an attempt to jump the underneath route, gave up the deep one. So that, again, is being aggressive, leads up to the big play. And then you saw Tracy Porter on one. It looks like he tried to jump a route to the inside. They go outside. So you're not seeing blown coverages necessarily. You're seeing guys trying to react and make big plays, and that's where the mistakes are happening.
But you're at least seeing them try to make big plays. That didn't happen under Gary Gibbs. They were almost timid. They didn't want to make a big mistake, and they made mistakes anyway. So why not go after the ball? And that's how they're creating turnovers. And if you screw up, just do it smart, you know. Just come back afterward but go after the ball, and that's what they're doing, and that's why they're being successful.
I remember a number of players over the last 5 years used to talk about how they had to think too much under Gibbs and Rick Venturi's defenses, and now it's all about reacting. Well, I don't mind them reacting with some aggression, because that's what's been winning games for this football team and making this defense better. Is they're acting first and flying to the ball, which has been great.
And it's funny you say that. Scott Shanley, I've talked to him several times.
Is he going to make the Pro Bowl this year? I mean, can you think we'd ever be talking about that?
I don't know, but he's a guy who said, look, I thought too much. I didn't go out and make plays. Look at him, back-to-back weeks he's making plays, and as much as people want to, throw Shanley under the bus, we need Derek Brooks. Shanley's a solid guy. He's playing well on defense.
And he's making tackles next to Darren Sharper. He's making the most plays on that defense. And I think what that shows is, remember how many times we talked about the improvement of each player was making over the year? You just weren't seeing it on the defensive side of the ball. Already in one offseason, you're seeing guys like Scott Shanley drastically improved. One thing we can't say, one area that is not improved, though, is the special teams. It continues to be the weak link. And it's going to come back and bite them sooner or later if they don't get something cleaned up.
I thought it was better today. I mean, compared to the first game, it couldn't get much worse. I mean, their kick coverage teams were horrible in week one. They had one big return today. But overall, I thought the kick return teams, kick pressure teams were a lot better. The field goal kicking, no blocks today. So I think overall, and the punter continues to be amazing with his punts and also his kickoffs. I think it was, if game one was a D, then this was probably a C+, I think.
You agree?
Right, and bringing back Courtney Roby, it's almost, it takes the pressure off, say, a Robert Meacham, who they wanted to get into kick returns in the preseason, and they just couldn't. They wanted to do it against Oakland when they blew Oakland out, but Oakland didn't kick off the ball that much. But bringing back Roby, it just makes you solid, and it's a guy who can do that, and that's what they need.
You set it and forget it with Thomas Morstead and John Carney, but if you keep giving up those big plays, it's going to come back and bite you. They thought they had addressed it. Obviously didn't address it enough. Larry Holder, CBSSports.com. We appreciate you coming on. You know Juan Kincaid. He's everywhere.
I know Juan Kincaid. He is everywhere.
Thanks for joining us, guys. All right, stick around. College football after the